Hey, it's Taylor with Mom on the Spectrum, and today we're talking about a topic that I've wanted to bring to the channel for a while because I feel like it's a very important discussion. We are going to be talking about the social versus medical model of disability. Okay, so if you're new to these ideas, I would just ask you to approach this with an open mind. I'm not here to discuss which option is correct. I think there are assets to both views, and I know that some people feel very strongly one way or another. So all we're going to do today is explore what those two viewpoints are and how they may or may not affect the autistic community. If you're new to the channel, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Mom on the Spectrum. I started this channel because I was diagnosed as autistic at age 31, which is about 3 years ago now. And having that vocabulary felt like coming home. Like I felt like I had always been wandering in the wilderness trying to find a way to describe how different I felt from everybody else. And then as soon as I got my professional autism diagnosis, I had more vocabulary, more resources, and it's helped me develop so much more self-compassion and I just feel more at peace, like in my body and who I am. And so I had to tell the world about it. So that's why I'm here today. If that sounds like that might be helpful to you, then make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video if it's helpful to you, and leave a comment about what you think about this maybe controversial topic that we're covering today. So let's talk about the medical versus social model of disability. The medical model of disability is basically generally speaking, the approach from the medical field that people are disabled by their differences, okay? So if someone's in a wheelchair, they're disabled because they're unable to walk. The social model of disability would argue that we are disabled by our environment. So a person in a wheelchair is not necessarily disabled because they can't walk, but because there's not proper access into the place where they would like to go. The medical model comes much more from this perspective of people who are different need to be fixed. And again, I'm generally speaking, okay, so please be kind in the comments. Generally speaking, the medical model of disability strives to fix differences so that we all more closely resemble each other, okay? And I'm paraphrasing. The social model is much more accepting of differences and tries to find accommodations that can integrate people with differences into the environment in a more holistic way. So it's less trying to cover up, mask, do away with the differences, more of embracing them in the social model. Now, there's some people in the autistic community who are very big on the fact that they feel like they have a disability. They feel like being autistic disables them. And I understand that and I support you. And I definitely agree that there are aspects to life on the spectrum. Yeah, there's many days when it does feel like a disability. I also want to challenge our thinking in that, you know, these models of approaching disability, it's not just physical accommodations that we're talking about. This is mindset shifts that we're talking about too. So we have to take into account the fact how we've been raised to view people who are different, right? And if we had a different framework, you know, I guess this is so basic and simplistic, but if we are designing a building, right? Like what if we started from ground zero of how can every single person access this building? Okay. And I hesitate to say that because I'm not the spokesperson for this. What I'm trying to say here is let's question the norms that we've been taught, like the approaches that we have to how we create organizations, how we create systems, how we create products and services. And if we can come from a more inclusive place of, you know, how can people of all abilities access this? I think it could radically change what we're able to create and the people that we're able to serve and the difference that we're able to make in the world. Now, that being said, I do think that there are some benefits medical model of disability because some things can be a tremendous hindrance to everyday life, and it is important to recognize that there are innate challenges for people with different abilities. So I think that we can take both models and find helpful things about them, but the most important thing, in my opinion, is that we cultivate spaces for safe discussion, right? Let's get curious about how each of these models kind of came to be and what each brings to the table and where we want to go from here. In my opinion, you know, and what I hope for us is that ground zero can be, let's approach each person as a whole person who's not lacking in any way, but just has differences, right? And when we think about this in the context of history and inventions and products and ideas that have moved our civilization and our societies forward, these have oftentimes been by neurodivergent thinkers, people who are like so weird and different and eccentric, right? And when we write history books, we praise them and we think that they're so great. And what would we ever do without them for creating the light bulb or the iPhone or whatever it is? But whenever it comes to creating organizations and structures that uphold our society, there's so many times that these pillars of our civilization weed out people with different abilities because they're unable to access different services for whatever reason, because of their differences in cognitive functioning, because of physical differences that they might have. And so many times these people that get left out are the people that could very much bring to the table what we need in order to move forward as a society. So we've got to start figuring out ways to invite more people to the conversation, more people to the table, figuratively speaking. So it's something that I think deserves to be part of this conversation. And if you've taken a class with me or done a one-on-one session, which I'll put links to in the description, you've heard me say that, many times people on the spectrum have been labeled sensitive. And oftentimes in our society, sensitive is seen as a negative word. It's seen as like a sign of weakness. But being sensitive is a really significant strength. And we have to understand that our bodies give us feedback for a reason. It can be really empowering, thank you, Dr. Williams, to switch out the word sensitive with the word responsive, right? Our body is responding to things that are actually happening to us in our environment and giving us information that we can use to make an informed and empowered decision to help us move forward. So I think that's one shift that can be made, maybe in terms of the medical model of disability, just understanding that people with differences, they may appear to be more sensitive, but it's not because anything is less than or wrong with these people, with me, with this community. It's just that we're different and that our body speaks to us in different ways. And I actually think that if we listen to more closely to neurodivergent minds, there's a lot of information that society is missing out on that you could glean from neurodivergent communities, because we're like antennas. Like we pick up so much information in the environment and in terms of just the energy and the patterns in the world. There's so much information just waiting to be tapped in the neurodivergent community. So that's all I really want to say on this today. I just want to kind of start this conversation because I think there's many of us in the community who might be unfamiliar with these two different models. And I think it's really empowering to consider the social model of disability. How can you start thinking about your life differently in terms of, what if I'm not disabled by my differences, but what if I'm disabled by my environment? How could I change my environment? How could I ask others to help me shape my environment so that I could participate more fully in life? Okay, I'm going to leave you with that question, and I would love to hear some responses to that question in the comments. Please keep in mind other people are going to have different views in the comments. Obviously, this is YouTube, but it's such a beautiful community, and I just hope that you'll pay attention to each other. Get curious. Like if there's a comment that makes you mad, get curious about it. See if you can ask an informed question that's not coming from a place of judgment, but generally, what if this was someone you really cared about that you're trying to better understand by asking a question? Okay, so that's the approach I would love for us to have in the comments. But please let me know, what changes could we make today to help you feel more fully integrated into the world around you? If you'd like to learn more about how your brain functions as an autistic adult, you can check out my Meltdown Survival Guide. I'll put a link to download that in the description. It's going to describe more about how our nervous system works as someone on the spectrum, what it can feel like to be stuck in a meltdown, how to help yourself move through it, different accommodations that you can make, and just some other resources that might be helpful to you. Thanks so much for watching. You are a beautiful person with a really super great mind that deserves to be respected and appreciated. So thank you for spending your time here with me, and I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourself. Bye.